I'm Teo Saefkow, and you're listening to a forest walk through the Dakota Bear Sanctuary. In August of 2020, I was invited on a hike into this ancient growth forest, along with a collection of other artists. The purpose of this hike was to expose us to the majesty of the forest and give us an appreciation for the importance of saving this sacred place. As we walked through the forest, our tour guides taught us a lot, and I imagined ways I could bring back my learning experience and share it with others. That's where the idea for this project began. As you listen, I ask that if you're able, take this out for a walk. Pretend that you're on this hike with us. And if you're in a city on the west coast, there's a strong possibility that there once stood an ancient forest where you live now. Walk through that forest as you listen. Hear the birds, smell the tree sap. And if you can't take this for a walk for whatever reason, that's okay too. Throughout the piece, you will hear excerpts from recordings I took on the hike in August, a conversation I had with volunteers and experts who are trying to save the forest from logging, as well as a Squamish storyteller who graciously shared some of his knowledge. These were separate occasions, but are edited in a way that make it seem like they are happening at the same time. Now, let's go on a walk.
Quichtal Queensna, in Hot, Coats and Stomach, Oichuk Chasiam, in Hot, Tisha Ochomeo, Oichuk in Mantmant, in Sese, in Hot Squallow and Coats and Stomach, Yo and Hot. Quichtal is my ancestral name. Dennis Joseph is my given name. From the Squamish Nation. In the language, I gave thanks to Creator, giving thanks to Mother Earth and all that she provides. Welcome to our classroom. Welcome to each and every one of you, your hearts, your spirits, your strength for your safe arrival here. I'm glad I made it.
My name is Hans Penner. I'm with Elphinstone Logging Focus.
My name is Kendra Fanconi, and I'm the artistic director of The Only Animal.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lois, and I'm a volunteer with the Living Forest Institute.
I would just like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish people. And nothing that we'll say today about the valuation of the forest or the desire to protect this place should ever be seen as being in some way contradictory or above the rights of the Squamish people to be determinate about what happens on their land.
We're going on this hike today because we want to show you what potentially could be lost forever. BC Timber Sales, an arm of the Ministry of Forest, they have identified this block of forest to be sold. We want to show people what is at stake.
You know, I'm grateful and thankful to be here to share with you from my heart. And I know just from work I have done with our elders back home, that our people have been here for a very, very long time.
We've been engaged in trying to protect this particular block for almost 10 years now. First became aware of it when we saw it on a 5-year plan from BC Timber Sales. We had never been to this area, largely because it's quite inaccessible. It's kind of naturally protected with very steep terrain, but eventually we made our way in and discovered what we thought was a unique ancient forest.
These mushrooms I wanted to show you guys, they're kind of polypore and they're called artist conchs. You may have seen them, like my doctor has one in his office. The white side of it you can mark with your finger or a pencil or a knife tip, and you can carve in them and they stay almost forever. You can see the moisture under here. which is not from the rain, but rather just condensation. We were in here on a really dry day, and there was still in the morning, the underneath of the mushrooms had this.
Biologists divide it into old growth and then there's ancient forest. The difference between ancient forest and old growth forest is that the ancient forest basically has never had a fire, so you have individual by individual replacement of trees. So all the generations are represented in the standing forest.
You see, these trees are our pillars, and the sky is our ceiling, and this is our sacred home. That's why I say these words to you, to bear witness and take what's meaningful for you and take it home. Especially saving what's left here. It's very special to me to be able to come here today.
There's a lot of misconception that, oh, it's okay to cut down this old growth because it'll just grow back again and it'll be the second growth. But that's not true.
No, that's not true. This forest can never be replaced. I'm certain that there's remains of trees in here that are 3,000 years old. So maybe if you wait 3,000 years, then you could replace it without touching it.
Well, a long time ago, archaeologists told us, and I heard the Squamish side of the story from the great-grandmother, that they used to bury our loved ones at the top of the trees. And it was a practice that was practiced from Alaska all the way down to the southern tip of South America. Then over 500 years ago, it all stopped about the same time. We still don't know why.
In our society, we tend to hide dying, we hide death, we hide illness, we hide our elderly populations. And here in the forest, we see everything together. We see how the dead feed the living, nurse logs and the new little seedlings that are coming up out of it. We see the role of death and we see the role of the aging and of the young all together.
That's a very good description of it. Like when you look at a mound here, for example, in one glance, you can literally see generations of yellow cedar trees. A healthy young 200-year-old like this, next to a 1,000-year-old parent, both sitting on top or next to the remains of a grandparent slowly decomposing. Like a natural forest that's evolved over thousands of years like this one is like a complex organism where every part of it has integrated itself into the whole structure, the whole living thing. From the moss on the ground to the lichen in the treetops and the fungi on the ground as well. It's all illustrated in one monument.
And not just visually above ground, but also underneath. We can see here with the decaying forest floor how soft it is and how many layers of years and years of decaying, and how that feeds the insects and the plants and all the young seedlings.
CMT is the abbreviation for a culturally modified tree. That means modified, changed by human activity. In this forest, that's mostly yellow cedar that has in the past had some bark harvested from it by the First Nations.
One of the ways that you can tell yellow cedar is by its smell. If you put your nose here by where we cut this branch, do you smell that? It's like raw potato. The first time Hans showed me that, I was like, yeah, sure, it's like raw potato, but it really is like raw potato.
The other thing that you should know about yellow cedars is that yellow cedar is very rot resistant. So you can have yellow cedar standing for 200 years and you can barely notice a difference. Like you can take one of these old standing dead trees here and just scratch the surface and it's sound yellow, clear wood below.
And wasn't yellow cedar like more fine or softer than red cedar?
Yeah, yellow cedar is one of the nicest woods that grows in BC. Very smooth. The First Nations used it for many different things too, like paddles, carvings, mats, hats, masks. The cedar bark was probably one of the most used materials in the First Nations household. We've even read that they made baby clothes out of it because of its softer, fine texture.
And a lighter color, right? Like buttery.
Yeah, a very light color, yes.
We'll do a bit of a shift here for you guys. I brought my ocean-going paddle. I carved this in, it's the second one I carved in 2003. There's a beautiful journey called Tribal Journeys. It began in 1993. There was a gentleman in Bella Bella who, as their elders say, went off the way, and he was before a judge. And the judge said to him, I leave it up to you. I could deal with your sentence here today, or you could face all of your elders. And his decision was to face his elders. And he went back to the judge and he said, they were actually harder on me than you ever would have been. They had put him on an island up near Bella Bella for 2 years. They brought him food and resources, and as he shared through a dream, he had a great vision to invite all the coastal people to a gathering in Bella Bella in 1993. He spent a year traveling this coast, inviting all the coastal people to build a canoe, and the first journey saw 42 canoes land, and I was fortunate to be there. It was the beginning of the healing, not only for Indigenous people on this coast, but now people from all over the world. From Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, Norway, Japan. They've all come at different times to join with their canoes or join with one of our canoes to begin this healing journey together. I followed on weekends, and my day job, I couldn't be there during the paddle journey, but for 10 years I went on weekends to be with them. In 1993 I finally decided to get on and paddle. Longest journey was from Bella Coola for a month, from there to Cowichan. But the reason I share this teaching with you today is Squamish used to burn the base of a cedar tree. Then they would carve it here, and they would usually fall the tree near a river that was strong enough to carry the canoe to the ocean. That way they didn't have to drag it all the way down the mountain. So they would carve it in place. They would carve berry picking canoes, hunting canoes, warrior canoes, ocean going canoes. Squamish people were very resourceful, and some say up to 100 people could fit in some of those old time canoes. The canoe I travel in is 50 feet long and 54 inches at the widest point.
I know Ross told me at one point that a yellow cedar like that one that you could put your arms around might be worth $10,000 on the market.
And the tragedy is, of course, that $10,000 might sound a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it is so little in terms of the value that tree brings to humanity, to the animals. And those are the trees where the bear dens are. So without those trees...
Yeah, that's the bear denning is critical in the life of the bear. That's where the life starts for the bears, is in the den.
And it's that safe place, because bears have to be there for many months, right? The bear cubs are born, they're only a half pound, they're naked, they're blind, and is it they spend 2 or 3 months before they emerge, right?
Oh, yes.
From the den.
I think at least 4 months. So that's not an option for the bears. They can't decide, okay, well, because of global warming or whatever, now we don't need the bear dens anymore.
Some science believes today the the inner world of what's underwater. You don't totally know what's down there. Much like in some of these woods. Lots of gifts up here, still to be discovered. And as always, there's always teachings and messages that come across from those old people. Most of all, it's to take care. Take care of one another. Lots of work together with one heart and one mind. Sometimes it's very direct to a specific person. To walk softly. To walk a little closer to this Mother Earth.
Like any tree, the living part of the tree is the outside, the cambium. That's where the water, the nutrients go. So that, as a tree grows, the living part continues to move out. But because there's been no fire there, the old trees remain standing, and because of the tremendous age of some of these trees, they can start to decompose from inside. That naturally creates this space inside for the bear dens. Mostly at the base, but sometimes also up the tree where bears can shelter in the wintertime. But it's the age itself that is responsible for creating these cavities and dens.
So Hans, what you're just describing is exactly what we're seeing right here in front of us, this
Yes.
den. And I was just inside it, and it's so incredibly soft. It feels like our cozy bed mattress, and it feels so safe.
And some of them are as big as like your closet or like an elevator or a space like that. Hans, I heard from someone too that the practice of harvesting the tree bark, which was done by the Squamish people in this land, that the stripping of that bark creates a kind of wound and the tree heals around it and makes these lobes. And then those lobes in 800 years or something like that may form that crack that allows the bear dens into it. So there's this kind of symbiosis between this sustainable practice of the indigenous peoples of this land and creating bear dens. So it's this kind of interspecies collaboration, which is another great model for how humans can be stewards of these forests.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't have to be destructive. Like I mentioned there before, this represents the integration of all the different activities of plants, animals, and humans. After the last ice age, as the ice retreated, the trees and people returned here at the same time. So they share that history. That is actually something I think that's not recognized enough. How this forest, while it's ancient, it's no older than the people that came back after the ice age. So they share that history of 8,000 years, let's say. They both came back here after the ice and have lived together ever since, or at least until the mid-1800s. Like, we're not just talking about, a few decades living together in the forest. No, we're talking literally the whole history of the forest.
We're still here. We're still teaching. And it was with great joy I share with you these teachings and this knowledge. And leave it up to you to find more about wherever you land in your life, who people are as Indigenous people. Because there's so much there.
When you get to know ancient forests, you get to know really big trees. And I know that the slopes of Vancouver were covered by trees that you could stand around in a circle, 10 people holding hands all the way around the tree. And that walking in Vancouver, we forget that walking in Vancouver was once walking through an old growth forest that would have been full of those giants. When we realize how that's changed and what we've lost, maybe we think towards saving places like that so that we can know them. We can visit those cathedrals. We can feel those giants. We can try to see to the top of them. It's something we can do in community of humans stewarding these ancient forests.
Thanks for listening to this forest walk through the Dakota Bear Sanctuary. If you're interested in learning more about the Dakota Bear Sanctuary, or want to find more resources on how you can help save old and ancient growth forests throughout BC, you can Google Dakota Bear Sanctuary. There you'll find multiple links, including livingforestinstitute.ca, which has a list of 7 things you can do right now to help the cause. You'll also find theonlyanimal.com. Their Artist Brigade project is bringing arts and artists to the front lines of the climate emergency and is what this project is part of. And loggingfocus.org, which is a great resource for getting involved to protect forest treasures like Dakota Bear Sanctuary. All of these websites have links to a citizen action kit designed to help you spread the word about the Dakota Bear Sanctuary and help protect it for all time. If you would like to learn more about the Squamish Nation, learn how their government runs, and keep up to date on current events, you can go to squamish.net. The music you're hearing now and at the beginning of the Forest Walk is Yesterday Song by Scalawag. If you'd like to hear more of their music, you can go to thescalawagmusic.com. Thanks for listening.